Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Kate and today's video is going to be a very quick tutorial on how to do a floral wreath calligraphy piece using only Crayola super tip markers. This is how my piece turned out. As you can see, the style is super doodly, super free. You don't need any technical drawing skill whatsoever to be able to follow this tutorial and get a good result out of it. So grab your markers, grab a piece of paper, and let's get down to it. So step one is to actually create your lettering. The reason why you want to do this first is because I found from experience that doing the floral wreath first, you're kind of estimating how big the calligraphy is going to be, whereas calligraphy usually works a lot better when it's more natural and you're not trying to fit it into a very small space. So as you can see, I'm actually using the Crayola markers to create the calligraphy itself. This is a technique known as crayoligraphy sometimes. It's a little bit different to regular brush lettering and the techniques that you use there, but it's a fairly simple technique that's very popular with beginners. I'm not going to go into huge detail here how to do it, but there are lots of tutorials available on YouTube. The general technique that you need to be aware of, however, and this goes for all lettering, is that when your pen is moving down the page, so on a downstroke, you want the line to be thicker. So you want to apply a little bit more pressure to your pen, and this should give you the look of the letters that you want. So once you're happy with your lettering, the next step is to actually create the flowers that will go into the flower wreath. The main thing that you want to do here is sort of bend the stems and the petals around the letters so that it creates this look of the letters being encircled by the flowers. At this stage, you really need to trust the process. As you can see at this point, mine is looking kind of not that great, to be honest. You just got to keep going, keep adding flowers, and trust that eventually things will fall into place. I think my favourite of all the flowers are the ones that I've done here on the right hand side of the lettering, just because not only are they so fun to do, but they are also really hard to mess up. So the way that you would do these is draw a group of quite long, quite thin stems, and then above those just do a kind of cluster of really small, really erratically drawn, very scruffy flowers. The shapes do not have to be perfect, in fact they look a lot better if they're not. And you kind of want to end up with the shape of a teardrop if you were going to draw a line around the outside of the cluster. You can keep the flowers in the cluster as full flowers, or you can just kind of do the odd petal. And having these different types of flowers within that overall cluster just makes it a lot more visually appealing and a lot more natural looking as well. Just like I'm doing here, you can afford to be really scruffy with the actual shape of the petals. Try out a few different techniques, feel free to take inspiration from the ones that I've included here. Generally, try to include some open flowers, like the first one I put down on the page. You can also include some buds or some more closed flowers. Just experiment with different shapes of petals and leaves. They don't have to be perfect, and to be honest, the less perfect they are, the more visually interesting they're going to look. And let's be honest, nothing in nature is perfect ever anyway, so even if you draw something and you think, oh, that doesn't look quite like I imagined it or quite like I wanted to, at the end of the day, it's just going to contribute to a more interesting and more unique piece. So just keep going, keep adding bits to it, don't get too bogged down with how each individual flower looks, and yeah, just have some fun with it really. In general, when you're drawing your flowers, especially with these types of pens, is that you want to keep your movements quite light on the page. Try not to press down too much with the pen, otherwise you'll get a really uniform looking line and you'll get a lot of ink coming out of the pen, which will just make it look a little bit overly saturated on the page. If you keep your hand movements nice and light, you don't press down too hard, you'll get a nice variation between thick and thin strokes. It won't look super uniform and it will just add more to the really nice, really free, scruffy look of the piece that we're going for. So at this stage, I'm pretty much done with adding in all my flowers. As you can see, it's starting to look a lot better, it's starting to come together a lot more. And now's the point where we need to add some colour into it to brighten it up a little bit more. So go ahead and grab an array of different colours. I'm just using a selection of purples, pinks and blues here, and start adding in some colour to some of the petals, some of the leaves, anywhere that you think really needs it. Don't feel like you actually need to colour anything in. As you can see that I'm doing here, I'm just adding a few strokes of colour to the edges of some petals, to the inner parts of some petals, and adding a few lines on all the leaves. I'm not actually colouring anything in, I'm just holding my pen quite lightly, keeping the strokes quite smooth and quite sketchy, and not actually applying colour to a complete area. One thing that's quite nice to do is to layer the sort of colouring techniques that you can use. So as you can see here, I've used the blue pen on the bottom parts of these petals to kind of add more of a blocky shade of colour at the bottom there, and then I'm using this purple pen to add lines going on top of that throughout the whole petal. Varying the techniques like this can really help you achieve like a nice texture to the piece, and it can just make it look a little bit more visually interesting. Once you're happy with all the colours that you've added, what I like to do is just go back in and add a little bit of a shadow or something else to the lettering itself, just to make it pop out a little bit. Obviously, when you've added all the colours to the flowers, you want to make sure that the lettering itself still stands out, as that's the centrepiece of your piece. So I've just gone in with the grey super tip here and added a little shadow to the letters, and just makes them pop out a little bit. Obviously this is an optional step, but I think it adds a lot to the piece. So that's pretty much it. Thanks everybody for watching. I hope you found this useful. If you followed along at home, please do post your work to Instagram and tag me in it, because I would absolutely love to see what you've created. If you'd like some more of these tutorials, do let me know in the comments, and please do remember to like and subscribe as well to my channel, because it really helps me out. Once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.